There's a place, a school, an institution where a professor resides. One that for the past 30 years has traveled the world teaching others. A pioneer in America of the fighting science of Savate. One who codified the sports of this fighting style. One who has produced clubs, champions, and continues to develop. Listen to
Hello guys, it's back on Monday. We have a great question, and the question was, what are the top 10 Savate says bouts that everybody always talks about? And before we get into that, I want to thank everybody for subscribing, sharing, liking, sending questions, because we have way too many questions coming in from all over. From the connection of Savate to Egyptians to all kinds of stuff, and there's a lot of stuff in there that's pretty interesting. Some pretty wild questions, some good questions, some tactical questions. We've got some great ones, the 3 different posturings that we did last Thursday, which is pretty good. But what I'm trying to get at now is that, there's a lot of content out there. There's a lot of content out there within history, within Savate, and when we first started Savate, there were very few individuals. Now you have them all over the world, and that's great. Some people know what they're talking about. Some people should start learning and moving forward. But whichever way, it's putting the name of Savate out there. I was talking to my colleagues last week when I received the question, and we kind of boiled down to 10 bouts, but today we're going to cover 5, and then later on I'll do part 2 of this conversation, because there's some great ones. I mean, we had great fighters, great professors that fought in the ring, great silver gloves that fought, that they weren't professors, but they were silver gloves champions, world champions. So we're going to go from the oldest down, okay? And these are fights between the 80s and 90s, shy of 2000, because many of us follow Savate, many of us know Savate. The last decade or so, I haven't kept up with who's fighting, who's not. I know there's some great fighters out there and some great athletes that are in Savate and doing wonderful work, and we'll get to them as well. But these are bouts from the 80s and 90s. And fighters that competed back then in those eras, and people that should go out there and do their little research and what clubs come out and so on and so forth, where they're all from, where did they start, all that good stuff, because that's good to know. The history of Savate it's basically an oral tradition, even though I wrote 14 books on the matter. The last one talks about the professors, which, we still have some in print for those of you guys that want some, and we're going to be doing some signings on some of them and all that good stuff. Well, anyway, to make a long story short, but to the question, the bouts that are always remembered. Well, I'm going to start off with my professor, Patrell, Robert Patrell. And everybody they know who he is. He was a tremendous saboteur in the ring, a hellacious professor, one that to me is like my other father, my uncle, my professor. He's family. And the bout that I was not there. I wasn't present in this bout because it happened 84, 85, around there, 80, 86, was a bout between him and I know the other gentleman. His name is Dudufud. Dudufud was strong, as people say, very strong, big black guy, that knew his Savate, knew his boxe française, and Patrell came in there with that sly, savvy sense of the ring, because he knew the ring backwards and forward, and he wins the bout. There's a lot of stuff in there that people thought that Dudufud was going to crush my professor because of his strength, because of the way he was, and it turned out the other way around. My professor out moved him, out tricked him, outscored him. I remember asking my professor last week, in fact, I said, you know, your name's come up with this competition. He goes, Paul, I remember hitting him 5 times consecutive with a left hook. And he goes, I would move, and anytime I want to give him a left hook, I'll give him a left hook. And they will always connect. And I counted 5 times, and you know, and he goes, he's a dear friend of mine. There's a couple of pictures. And he's one that, you know, taught me that you can't go head to head with somebody that's that strong. You have to outflank them, outmaneuver them, outskill them, and use all that against him. And to me, that was very interesting what he says, that, you know, sometimes my professor and his teachings were a trickery type of savate that was in there. You know, his fuertes, the way you blocked, the way you moved, the way you gave a fuerte to the stomach, the way you countered, how you countered. It was always on angulations. So it was just, you just missed me by a little bit and bingo, you got hit. And that is what has always instilled me in the way I try to present myself and the way I teach my students as well. And the other 2 bouts are from professor students under Patrell. You know, the next one is going to be Richard Sila. And Richard Sila is my brother. He was my trainer in INSEP. He trained a lot of great champions, a lot of great fighters. You know, the creme of the crop went through Sila. Sila was the one that took Savate Boxe Française and removed it from the ring and placed it in kickboxing. Fought against Peter Cunningham, became world champion. But the fight that we're talking about is the fight that he had against a man from Holland, Corban. And Corban, you know, they fought twice. First one, Sila ends up tearing a shoulder. Fight was stopped. And the second fight, Sila just outpowered him in Amsterdam. And everybody always talks about it. Everybody always sees and says the videos in this way. Sila just outmaneuvered him and not just outclassed him. And you can see by some of the video that's there. And I'll show a couple of clips of it. And this one is actually the first one where he actually tears his shoulder. But he was outmaneuver him. He just, you know, did something malicious and toward the shoulder of Sila at that time. But he comes back later on and on a challenge and beats him. The next bout was in the 80s. It was a dear friend of mine. Both of them were good friends, but more closer to me was Dominique Duchloe. He was my brother and also professor under Patrell. And Dominique, when he fought Panza, you know, they fought twice, 3 times actually. But it was always Savate against Boxe Française. The school of Savate, Dominique, against Boxe Française, Panza. And they had great fight. You can you'll show some clips. And, you know, Dominique prevails in this one. And it's just a great to see the 2 differences of the top of each one of those fighting arts, and you can see some differences there. You all have to remember that in '78, the 2 different federations merged: the Federation of Savate and the Federation of Boxe Française, and they both merged together and to form one art, which was Boxe Française Savate. Boxe Française Savate is a sport, is a combative sport, is a pinnacle, in my opinion, of that. And I keep reiterating this because a lot of people say, oh, Boxe Française is for the ring, Savate's for the street. No. Those former arts had that, and right now those former arts are non-existent in the world. So when people say, I teach Savate, no, you teach a contemporary movement of that. But Savate.biz was developed in France in the 80s, and it was developed by both two main professors, the technical director, Bob Alex, and a great professor, Hervé Brolandet. Hervé Brolandet ended up grabbing Richard Sila and producing him what it was. Everything was tested on them. Sylvain Postal comes out of there. You have Pinocchio, Godefroy, Farina. Those are all professors and fighters that came out of Brolandet's um, Club Bellier. And the next two bouts are for those individuals from Bellier that everybody always talks about. You know, remember there's 10. We're doing 5 right now. I just did 3. You know, I did Robert Patrell against Dudufud, Richard Sila against Corban, Dominic Duchloe against Andre Panza, and then we're going to do the last 2. And it's very important, these next 2, because coming out of Berlandet, coming out of Bellier, next one is François Pinocchio against Lupero. 2 tough athletes, 2 tough guys in the ring. You know, Pinocchio I know very well. To me, he's like family. Seeing everybody at that time frame grow up, trying to imitate, trying to do how Pinocchio moved in the ring, and try to doing that in your own asshole and stuff like that was quite to see, because these were individuals that basically changed the movement of boxing Savate. I give credit to Pinocchio, give credit to Sila, give credit to Sylvain Postal. Those were the fighters that people were looking at in Savate to try to imitate and become. Farina is another one. Okay. But Pinocchio in this fight was a very, very strong fight. Both of them were very, it was a French championship. At the end, Pinocchio wins. And there's a picture of that. It was Pinocchio with Lupero. And great, great fight. You know, it's always talked about how Pinocchio outmoved him, outclassed him, both strongs, great striking power by Ferrer. But at the end, Pinocchio comes ahead and wins. The next bout is Sebastian Farina and Mergentine in Bellier against Vincennes with Pascal Mali's student, which was Nigentini. And here's a clip, and you guys can see that because I'm going to continue talking about it. Both excellent fighters, both great stylists, both bone rollers and sidewalk thumpers. Man, these guys were going back and forth. At the end of the round, at the end of the 4th round, Farina comes in with a foot to the stomach and drops Nigenti. And this fight, I remember at this time, this was the first time I saw Boxe Française live, was this fight. Okay. And I remember when everybody was walking out, because it's when I was in France, or getting there in France and getting acclimatized to everything. And everybody was comparing him, Farina, with that fight was Hearns and Hagler fight. Okay. Remember the fight with Hearns and Hagler? Well, the Hearns and Hagler fight of Savate.biz was this one. And pay attention to it. You can watch it. I'll share the links at the bottom. I think you all will enjoy it. Next week, I have another great question. And in 2 weeks, we'll come back and finish the other 5 top 10 bouts of Boxe Française Savate. Once more, folks, you stay safe, be safe. I'm going to leave you with the following. Be kind to everybody. We're starting a week. Be kind. So, you know, open doors, smile. You know, people are just coming out of a year of a bunch of hate and aggressivity and people being in fear. Let's stop that. right? Till next time, much peace.
Secret of Laredo. Buitron Academy, 956-401-4868. Savate.biz.